All right, let's dive into one of the all-time great internet mysteries. It's a story you've probably stumbled across in some late-night rabbit hole. A tale about impossible passports, countries that don't exist, and a man who might have just slipped through from another dimension. But is that what actually happened?
Okay, so picture this. We're at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. It's buzzing, totally normal day, people coming and going. That is, until one particular man steps up to the customs desk to present his passport.
Now, at first glance, everything seems to be in order. The passport looks official, it's got stamps from all over the world, even from previous trips to Japan. But as the immigration officer is flipping through it, they notice something that just doesn't feel right. The passport says it was issued by a country called Taured. The officers never heard of it, so they check the maps, they make a few calls, and they keep getting the same answer. There is no such country as Taured. And this, my friends, is where the legend really begins.
So yeah, you've probably seen this story pop up online. The legend of the Man From Taured. It's one of the most famous and enduring glitch in the Matrix stories out there.
The legend goes something like this. The man gets frustrated, right? He insists Taured is a real place, that it's been around for 1,000 years. When the officials show him a map, he points to the area around Andorra, totally baffled that his home country isn't listed. The authorities, having no idea what to do, put him up in a hotel for the night. High-floor room, 2 guards posted right outside the door. But the next morning, the room is completely empty. The man, his briefcase, his impossible passport, all gone. Vanished.
It's an incredible story, right? A perfect little paranormal puzzle. But what happens when we start to pull at the threads of this myth? Well, we uncover a story that's just as bizarre, but in a much more human way.
So here's the first big twist. There absolutely was a mysterious man who baffled the Japanese authorities. But this didn't happen in 1954 like the internet legend says. The real story actually took place in 1960.
And this really gets to the core of it all. See, the man didn't pop in from another dimension. He just had a really well-made fake passport. And he didn't vanish from a locked hotel room. He ended up in a locked prison cell. Big difference.
So who is the real Man From Taured? Well, the official records tell us his name was John Allen Kuchar Zegras.
Zegras wasn't some interdimensional tourist. He was an international con artist. The reason he was even on the police's radar is because he was trying to cash a bunch of forged and fraudulent checks at banks around Tokyo.
And we're not talking about small amounts either. He was trying to pass checks for hundreds of thousands of yen. He wasn't in Japan for a vacation. He was there to commit fraud using this incredibly elaborate, totally fake identity he'd built for himself. I mean, you have to appreciate the sheer audacity of the backstory he created. When he was questioned, Zegras spun this wild tale about being a spy, a war hero, the whole 9 yards. But when the authorities actually did their homework and checked with these countries and agencies, turns out the whole thing was a complete fantasy.
The real story doesn't end with a mysterious disappearance. It ends with a really grim moment of desperation. On August 10, 1960, a Tokyo court sentenced Zegras to 1 year in prison. And right after the verdict was read, he tried to take his own life. This wasn't some phantom from another world. This was a cornered criminal who had run out of lies.
So, if the truth is this weird but pretty straightforward fraud case, how did it morph into a legendary paranormal event? Well, it all boils down to a decades-long game of telephone.
This timeline lays it all out. It starts with the real event in 1960. A few days later, a Canadian newspaper reports the story, but they make one tiny, crucial typo. Then, in 1981, that typo gets picked up and repeated in a book about strange phenomena. Fast forward a couple of decades, the internet finds the story and it just explodes into the dimension-hopping myth we all know today.
And that brings us to the final, most critical piece of this whole puzzle. The name that launched 1,000 conspiracy theories. Taured.
So let's finally solve this thing once and for all. Where did the name of this mysterious country actually come from? The answer, you'll see, is surprisingly simple.
And here it is. The original newspaper article that started all this mentioned his passport was from Tamanrasset, capital of the state of Taured. Now, Tamanrasset is a real place in Algeria, and it's home to the Tuareg people. See it now? Taured was almost certainly just a simple typo for Tuareg.
So when you line it all up, the paranormal mystery just completely evaporates. A con man becomes an interdimensional traveler. A fake passport becomes an artifact from another world. A simple typo becomes a lost nation. And a criminal getting deported after his prison sentence becomes a man who vanishes into thin air. The story of John Zegras is just a perfect case study in how a real event, twisted by a few small mistakes and a whole lot of imagination, can transform into a powerful legend. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other urban legends are out there, just waiting for someone to uncover the simple and often far more interesting truth?